9 Plus Us presents the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Blackjack Brad and Kansas City Little Big Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, Baseball Family. I am Brad, and I gave Brig one more week off. We're going to have him back next week for sure, but this week I am joined by a good friend of mine, Kyle. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm good, Brad. It's good to be here. I'm a little jealous of Brig that you gave him another week off at the Negro League Baseball Museum. I'm pretty mad that I didn't get an invite to that, but you know, it is what it is.
We're all missing out on that one. We're all missing out on that one for sure. That seemed like a good time. He posted about that today on the VIP group. If you haven't seen it or you're not a member of the VIP group, go ahead and search 9 Plus Us VIPs, and we'll add you. And you can actually see some photos from Brig's trip to the Negro League Museum today, Friday, June the 19th. Pretty cool trip that he's on right now.
Well, it really is, because then they got like a camper or something to drive there, and like I feel a little jealous because I'm getting a travel trailer this weekend, so like that would have been a great road trip actually.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the Negro League Museum is on my bucket list for sure. Like that's one of the places I am gonna have to hit sometime in my life. I've always wanted to go. It's awesome, and he said you're going to need at least 2 hours to get that done, and I'm sure we'll hear about it a lot on the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll hear about the whole trip, so
Good
excited
times.
for that. Look forward to that next week. But Kyle, let's get into some current events. Let's talk about some stuff that we've got going on right now. Unfortunately, there's not too much. It's kind of the same old news, just new developments, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I mean, With everything going on this week, we've had spikes all over the place. I'm in Arizona, and COVID tests, I mean, it's just like it's gone through the roof. It's been insane how many we've seen, because I remember before we moved down here, I was like, oh, it's not too bad. It's really not that bad of a place. Then they reopened the state, and it's out of control. I mean, I don't know what it's like where you're at in Utah, but man, it's crazy here.
Utah's pretty. Let's put it this way: Utah's having a major spike right now.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wish that the Department of Health, I don't know how it is in Arizona when they report the numbers. The one thing I wish they do in Utah is kind of specify a little bit more where the majority of these daily cases are happening, because just by giving out a flat number, everybody's left to assume, well, it's happening in Salt Lake or Provo and I don't. That's what I wish, is they show specific areas where hotspots are.
Yeah, and that was one thing they were doing in Idaho, is they were saying exactly like which counties had how many. They weren't saying cities, but they were saying counties. But with these spikes that we're seeing this week, we've seen it get into MLB training camps, because they've opened up training facilities. I actually live not far from the Mariners and Padres spring training facility, and we were up driving around one day. We decided to drive through and just take a look, and we actually saw some guys there working out.
Nice.
We saw some players' vehicles in the parking lot, and I don't think doesn't seem like that's something we're going to see anymore, because as of 10-15 minutes of us coming on and recording, everything's shutting it all down, and they're going to do deep cleaning before they let anybody come back, and everything's back up in the air for MLB. It's like we were talking about this, and you mentioned it's almost like this is perfect timing for Rob Manfred, right?
It really, with the fight going on between the players and the owners, to whether what the pay is going to be, how many games the season is going to be, we've seen that drama play out for the last couple months really.
Yeah, it's been a long time, because they haven't been able to reach any kind of agreement. And like Manfred said a few weeks ago, we were joking about it, there were no plans, just ideas, and it doesn't seem like they really even had an idea.
Well, and you think about it, what was it? It was like 2 days ago that all of a sudden Manfred came out, or the MLB came out and said a certain amount of players had tested positive for COVID. Like, this was right after, I believe the owners declined the player's offer of how many games to play. So it's sad to see that they're just going back and forth. Now, with what's happened with players testing positive and facilities being shut down and stuff, that's serious. My only concern with that is how is that going to impact life going forward? And I'm not just saying that for baseball. Like if players test positive now, let's say that, I mean, the average time for people to get over this, from what we've seen, they test a couple more times in 10 to 14 days. And if they test negative, then what? Does life go back to, they get to go back to working out? Or how does it work? Because, like, this whole virus is just wreaking havoc. Like, I've hated it since it came about because, I was in Las Vegas for the WAC tournament, flew in on a Wednesday night. Thursday morning, the tournament was canceled. So it's, like, impacted everything, and it sucks. Excuse my language. But it's like the question is now, with this going forward, is this what's going to happen every time somebody tests positive? And
that's been the big question. Right? Because Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz tested positive, and within 24 hours, everything was shut down.
Yep.
I mean, there was no more spring training. You weren't sure what was going to go on with the NFL. The NCAA tournament, like you said, every NCAA basketball tournament was shut down. There was, I think it was the Big Ten started playing, and then they're like, oh, wait, get off the court. We can't be doing this.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was within like 24 to 36 hours of Rudy Gobert testing positive, everything shut down. So that's been the big question, is what's going to happen when you get a positive test? Because it seems like it's just running through these training camps right now, and I mean, it doesn't seem there's really any way to stop it or slow it down right now.
Well, but the other thing people have to realize too, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a specialist, I'm not anything else. I'm just playing by simple numbers that I've seen. That most, if not all, of these athletes are going to recover just fine, and they probably all were.
Right. Yeah.
I would bet they were all asymptomatic when they got tested. So,
probably.
They probably didn't even know they had it until they got tested. And you and I have talked about this in the past, that's kind of a big issue because, I remember you telling me that, look, you have to walk around thinking or believing that you have it and that you could possibly give it to somebody else. I don't know. I wonder, though, if it's good that some of these guys are getting, like, they're finding out that they tested positive because – I'm like I said, I'm not a doctor or specialist, but maybe they can develop antibodies as they recover from it. I mean, maybe they won't suffer, like some other people have with the serious, symptoms and stuff like that. I mean, there's just so many questions, and I think that's what makes this whole thing frustrating. Is what does it mean if somebody has it, and then recovers? Like, does that mean all of a sudden they're not going to get it again? Is it like chicken pox? With that regard, I mean, it's just there's so many questions that
and a lot of those questions are unanswered at this point because, like they keep saying, it's a new thing. It's not like anything we've ever seen before, and it's insane. And with all of this, I mean, this has just come down today, like I said, with all of these positive tests that it has Rob Manfred and MLB reconsidering their bubble scenario or their 3-location scenario where we talked about playing at 2 locations in Phoenix, 2 locations in Texas, in Houston and Arlington, and then 2 locations in Florida in St. Petersburg and Miami. And initially I had thought like, oh, there's only one place to play in Phoenix, but I just live down the street from State Farm Stadium where the Arizona Cardinals play. They can play baseball there, right?
Yeah.
So you've got 2 locations in each place where you could play 3-4 games a day in each spot and get everybody's games in. So that is plausible, I guess. Possible, maybe not plausible, right?
Well, but the thing is, if you're only playing in 2 spots, let's say you play 4 games in between 2 stadiums. So that's what 2, 4, 6, 8 teams that have to go through. Well, 4 teams that have to go through each individual stadium, right? Or, I don't know, my math is way off. That was bad. But anyways, you still have a lot of traffic that are coming in and out of those locker rooms, clubhouses.
Yeah.
I mean,
you've got to sterilize everything in between.
I don't see the downfall of playing one game. I mean, with all the spring training sites that they have in the Phoenix area, same with Florida. like, why can't you just play one game a day, and then you have more time to sterilize, to, clean it up, to sanitize
the
it, and so
problem with
forth?
that is that, I mean, tomorrow I think it's supposed to be 111 here, and there's a reason they have a dome on Chase Field.
That's a good point.
Because it's too stinking hot to play baseball out there. Because I think it's supposed to be 115 next week. You can't be playing in that. That is so hot. I mean, I know college guys, and there are some places around the world where they do play in that. But if you don't have to, you shouldn't.
Hey,
because
you know
it's
what?
Not safe.
They should play like even though it's still like 90 plus degrees at midnight. Maybe just play midnight games.
Play night games.
Then you don't have to.
There you go.
You don't have to worry about fans. You don't have to worry about anything. Yeah. You just play the game. End of story. You sanitize it for the next 12 hours. Then you get to play.
It's been a nice 75 degrees around here when the sun goes down. I think you're onto something there. That would be perfect, because what fans are going to try to get in? I mean, maybe the guys who've been out partying are going to try to get through the gate, but just a little bit of security can take care of that.
Think about it though. That's why high schools in the Phoenix area all have lights at their schools, so they can play night games. Because, like you said, during the day, during the the usual time, like we play in Utah, where it's 3:30, 4 o'clock. That's the hottest part of the day down there. So they have to play night games. And I mean, what's wrong with a good night game? Nothing.
I preferred playing under the lights, to be honest. I could see the ball better. I don't know why.
Yeah, and there's more. Yeah. There's like more. God, I don't even know what it is. There's just something nice about playing under the lights. I can't even describe it. Nice. So
I think you're onto something there, Kyle. I like that idea. I really like that. Maybe we should send something on to old Rob and see what he thinks of that. So.
Well, they got to get through this. They got to get through these COVID testing positives.
Yeah, they do.
First, so
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you mentioned earlier about how MLB had declined an offer from the players, and MLB said today no more negotiating. It did seem like like they're not going to go negotiate, but they're still meeting. I'm not sure how exactly that works, but I did see Trevor Bauer mention on Twitter beginning of last week, beginning of this week, where he was saying all it is Rob Manfred's just wasting time. And I actually heard on Dan Patrick where he always refers to an MLB source. He never uses a name for obvious reasons. But he was saying that this is all scripted. The fact that they don't have an agreement, that Rob Manfred is essentially just filibustering to get to a point where he can say, okay, the most games that we can play right now is 50. I'm implementing it, full prorated salaries, 50 games, go play. I mean... Does it? And once I saw that, I was like, that actually makes some sense. That could be what's going on.
It really sounds like it. I think back to 2001, 9/11, with all that stuff that went down, and how important it was that baseball games were played immediately after all that happened, especially in New York.
Yep.
And how people flocked to baseball. Like, everyone came together. President Bush threw out the first pitch at the Yankee game. I mean, it just brought people together. I think about, after the strike of 94, I believe it was, it took some time to get fans back engaged, but they came together because something big was happening, which we'll talk about, later on in the podcast.
Yeah.
But, baseball is something that people, rely on. It's there. And this whole mess, and I've talked to my dad about players being a little greedy with what they're expecting with pay and stuff like that, because I'm a believer that, if you're not working, you shouldn't get paid, period.
I agree with that.
It's not like they're laid off where they can get unemployment. But
and the thing is too is even when they're working out, they don't get paid, and they understand that.
Sure.
And that's why they want so many more games, is because they only get paid for games played.
Absolutely.
And that's why the players are like, yeah, we're willing to play double, triple headers. Let's do it because we want our money. And I talked with Jason last week about how there are certain guys who, like, this year could have been the peak of their career, and then next year could have been their opportunity to make the most money possible.
Yep.
Or this could have been the last year of a big contract, their last chance to make their maximum amount of money. So I understand why the players are kind of stingy and upset, because their window to make money is so small.
Sure.
And these owners saying that baseball doesn't make money, then why are you in it? I understand it's a hobby and it's a toy. It's not your main source of income. But somebody who's a billionaire isn't going to be dumping money into something if it's not going to be making money. And I don't buy that, to be honest, because they've been talking about how they've been making record amounts of money over the last few years, and revenue has been through the roof because of TV deals, regional TV deals, everything like that. Like, that's my big issue with this thing, is the owner saying, "Oh, we're losing money." No, you're not. TBS just gave you $1 billion for TV money.
Well, yeah, and
I don't buy that.
That's something that bothers me too. Is it's like, if you're saying that it doesn't generate revenue, like you said, why would you buy into being an owner of a baseball team? That's not logical. Like, there's a disconnect there, because you don't. If you're a billionaire like they are, like owners are, you've invested in stuff that is going to be successful and revenue generating. So why would you take the risk of investing in something that you know is not going to generate any revenue? That just is baffling to me. So let's cut the crap with the owners and saying that, and like that's bogus.
Yeah, and I used to be like such like an anti-player guy, like, oh, you're getting paid billions of dollars to play a game. But with that, I totally flip-flopped on that. I was like, no, I am pro-player in this case and anti-owner, because they can't claim poverty when they're obviously not broke.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
know. It's frustrating. The whole thing is just frustrating. I mean, I say it every week. It's
well, and here's the other problem. Okay, I believe is it this year or next year they're going to have to renegotiate the collective bargaining agreement
after next season.
Yeah, and
the
so
2021 season.
I honestly think that what's going on right now will absolutely hurt the owners in that collective bargaining agreement, because the players can hold more over their heads by saying, well, you did this, you kept us from playing, even though we were negotiating in good faith. I mean, it's going to be a mess next year. And, like, I hate to say it, but some people have speculated there could be a strike next year again, or the year after. I mean, it's just nuts.
I'm not counting on baseball in May, in April and May in 2023, 2022.
But that's what's depressing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. When I saw somebody this week say no baseball until 2023, and that, I was so scared I didn't even click the link to watch his justification. I was like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't even want that to be a thought, because we at least need. I mean, even if they can't figure it out this year, and I'll give them a pass this year. I mean, granted, they should be training and playing right now. They should be doing spring training 2.0 or whatever. But if this second wave of COVID with MLB keeps them from playing this year, I'll give them a pass. But you better get it figured out, because you've got time. You better get it figured out for next year. And you sure as heck better be negotiating that CBA before 2021, because you've got time. What else are you doing at this point?
I totally agree. I think that's what's most depressing to me, is baseball had a chance to show the world that, hey, we know that there's something going on that's really bad and hurting a lot of people and causing a lot of problems for a lot of people, but you know what, we can fight it together. And by taking the field and having a plan in place and putting things together, I mean, they could have had a huge impact, not just on the world, but on their own brand in a positive way. Instead, it's taken a turn for the worst, and the Major League Baseball brand is just slowly drifting, down a river right now. And it's not looking good.
Yeah, it's not in a good spot. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, let's go ahead and wrap that up. Let's take a short break. When we get back, you guys are going to get to know Kyle a little better with a quiz.
Looking forward to that.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back with me. Root, root, root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Shop kids' baseball shirts at 9pluss.com.
Welcome back, baseball family. All right, let's get to know Kyle. Kyle is one of my good friends from college. We went to journalism school together. He actually helped me get into sports writing and everything that has come with it. So I owe that to him, and thank you, Kyle.
Best sports section ever, Brad.
It was. We did have the best sports section ever. Kyle currently is doing an independent project called Whack Hoops Digest, where he covers all thing whack basketball. So, and real quick before we get going on this, I remember one time Kyle and I, we were sitting there interviewing Mark Pope. He's currently the head coach at BYU, but at the time he was the head coach at UVU where we went to school. And something happened in basketball. I don't remember what it was. And first off, let me preface this. Kyle, you played college baseball, right?
For a semester, yeah.
Yeah, so you're a baseball guy first, just like me,
Yep.
Right? So Pope says something happened. He just I don't remember what it was, but he goes, "Guys, isn't it just the best sport in the world?" And we kind of looked at each other like, "Well."
He said that to the
don't get me wrong.
Said it to two wrong people. That was the
yeah.
But he didn't know, so we got to get
it wrong.
credit.
I love basketball. Yeah, exactly. I love basketball, but man, baseball is definitely my first love. It's just so funny that the two biggest baseball guys in the sports section says that too. We just kind of look at each other like, well, that's all right.
Yeah, good
So
times.
funny. So funny.
Good times.
All right, let's get into this. Let's get to know Kyle better. Okay, are you ready for this, Kyle?
I absolutely am not, but let's go.
All right. Okay. First off, how many big league ballparks have you gone to?
Ooh, good question. I can't count them off the top of my. Well, okay, so let's just go through them here. Wrigley, so that's one. The old Comiskey Park, because my dad taught at an all-boys Catholic school right across the Dan Ryan from it, and they actually
nice.
played some high school games in there. So the old Comiskey
really
Park,
cool.
the new, it's not Comiskey Park anymore, but like it was the new Comiskey Park when they first built it.
Yeah, I can't even think of what it's. I'll look it up while you think.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it now. Guaranteed
rate
yeah,
field?
guaranteed rate field. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
I've been to Camden. Is it M&T Bank Stadium? Is that the Phillies?
I'll look. Keep thinking.
Okay, so the new Phillies Stadium.
Citizens Bank.
Citizens Bank Park. That's right. Okay.
Yep.
And is it Chase Bank Field?
Chase Field down here in Phoenix.
Yeah. Chase Field.
There you go.
Goodness. So 6?
Okay. So let's take Wrigley out of there because I know you're going to be biased as a Cubs fan. Which was your best ballpark experience?
I like Citizens Bank, probably because of where we sat. I went with my grandma and my aunt and uncle, and we sat like 10 rows up down the third base line. And what was crazy about it is we got there, we parked, and you could see a rainstorm rolling in. Mm-hmm. And just as we got inside the gate, under the stadium, it started pouring. Like we were thinking, we're not gonna be able to watch a ball game. that's it. I mean, literally, it was pouring. 15 minutes later, they're taking the tarp off, play ball. And it was a beautiful night. And
nice.
Had I not been fat and lazy, I probably would have caught a foul ball because there was one that hit right in front of me. And I still feel bad to this day because there was a lady right there that it missed by like centimeters. And so I had a chance to protect the lady and catch a foul ball, but I just didn't get up out of my seat. So that was
You're just sipping your drink as this ball is like careening towards this lady.
I mean it was pretty wild. But that one was probably my favorite. Camden, I like the setup at Camden Yards, but it's too I don't know, it's a little too
very small.
Crowded.
It looks very small.
Yeah. And Chase Field, I mean, that's a great experience. One day the roof's open, the other day it's not. But I would have to say Citizens Bank Park, and I think the Phillies won on a walk-off that night too.
Nice, very cool.
So it worked out.
That's awesome. I like that.
But nothing tops Wrigley. I'm sorry, never will.
No, I mean that's why I put that little caveat on there, because I knew as a Cubs fan that would be your top one.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Cubs, let's go with the Cubs a little bit. This is one of my favorite questions that Brig has asked. If the Cubs were a drink, what would they be?
Cubs were a drink?
Were a drink, what would they be?
Oh, is this like an alcoholic or any kind of drink?
It doesn't matter.
Well, because I drink a lot of Dr. Pepper, like it's running through my veins, I'd probably have to say Dr. Pepper. Like I told my doctor last week that, when they pull the blood out to do some blood tests, I'm pretty sure there's going to be Dr. Pepper in those veins. So it would have to be Dr. Pepper.
Nice. Who is a player that you like on a team that you hate?
A player on a team that I like.
You like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it in the break. Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, the guy is he's humble. He's quiet about doing his business. And he outworks a lot of people. So the numbers that he puts up consistently, I mean, you can't help but love a guy that just goes out, plays the game, and does his thing. There's no drama tied to him and things like that. And Paul Goldschmidt's one of those guys.
Yeah, he is. I like that. And that's the other thing we talked about too, is that he fits the Cardinals culture like perfectly.
He's just he's a blue collar worker. Was that right? Blue collar? Yeah, blue collar worker.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they have in that organization. I hate to say it as a Cubs fan that the Cardinals organization, the way they develop guys or the way they get these blue collar workers, that just go about their business on the field, that's what you really want with your own, your favorite organization. And they've kind of set that standard. And like you said, Paul Goldschmidt fits that perfectly.
I like that. That's good. Yeah, he's a guy. I like him a lot. I actually have been like a little bit of a D-backs fan for the last like several years because I fell in love with their snake logo and kind of like their color scheme. So I was like, I can get behind that as a National League team a little bit. And it was like as soon as I jumped on board was about the time that Goldschmidt got traded. I was just like, well, now who now? And I've got to know the team a little bit better since then. But I was just like, man.
Yeah.
So, and he was another reason because he's just a good guy, and I wanted to cheer for him.
Nice.
But anywho, is there a baseball stadium or a baseball event that is on your bucket list?
Baseball stadium or baseball event? Well, I mean, obviously, it's a no-brainer to go. I would say Yankee Stadium, but it's not the same because it's new. So
right,
that's changed. Fenway Park will always be on the bucket list. Dodger Stadium, just because of the history there. I love the College World Series. I went one year. I think it was the summer that I graduated, way back in the Stone Ages. But I don't know that it's the same mystique as it was when it was at the old Rosenblatt Stadium.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I feel like the College World Series has kind of been, I don't know why, but it's kind of been bumped down a couple notches. And I don't know if that's just personally, because I used to watch every year growing up because I wanted to be there, you know? Yeah. And now it's just kind of like I pay attention, but I don't watch as much.
But, you know, and that's the thing. I haven't experienced the new stadium, TD Ameritrade or whatever. So maybe if I go experience it and see what it's like, maybe that will go back to the top of the bucket. Well, if I go to it, I guess it's not on the bucket list.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean. That you would bump it up as something is a little more prestigious than what you think of it as now.
Yeah, I think
right?
I think experiencing maybe like an LSU Florida or LSU Mississippi State or something series at Alex Box Stadium down there in Baton Rouge.
That'd
you know,
be
like
sweet.
for the weekend. I think
that
might be one of those places that I would, although the humidity would probably melt me and kill me. I think that would be a great experience, something that I think is on my bucket list. Because if you remember right, 2016 UVU won the WAC, and that's where they had to go for their regional, was to Baton Rouge to Alex Box Stadium. And they said it was one of the craziest, most fun atmospheres that they've ever played in. And, you know, so I think going down there and experiencing that, like a 3-game series against one of their rivals in the SEC, maybe even Vanderbilt, that would be great. LSU Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that would be super cool to watch.
You know, yeah. And cool thing is my dad, one of his good buddies from high school, whose dad baptized my dad into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, lives down there in Baton Rouge, and he's told us, you know, come down anytime. You know, if it's football season, we'll go see a night game at Tiger Stadium. You know,
cool.
And so there's an invite there. So maybe I might have to, you know, get on the bucket list and
cash
go down.
that one in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be cool. That's awesome. Okay, if Javi Baez were a superhero, who would he be?
Ooh.
DC, Marvel, doesn't matter. Superhero.
Oh, might have to think about this. Captain America, maybe?
Captain America? Why Captain America?
Just because Javi's not the most outspoken. He just goes about his work, getting things done, you know, and honestly making people around him better and stronger with his play. I mean, yeah, I think maybe Captain America, because
maybe Captain Puerto Rico.
Something like that, yeah.
And see, I would have chosen. I probably would have put Chris Bryant more as Captain America, or maybe even Anthony Rizzo, maybe. And I probably would have given Baez something more like, I don't know, like Gambit. I don't know.
I might have put Rizzo as the Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Chris Bryant, more like Iron Man, just because he's the pretty boy like Tony Stark is. So
well, that's kind of why I gave him Captain America, because he's like, I don't know, he's kind of a pretty boy like Captain America, but then also he's like, I don't know, you know, I don't watch a whole lot of Cubs, but he feels like the leader to me. I don't know if he really is or not, though, or if that's Rizzo or what.
That's the thing. It's tough to say because Javi's not as outspoken as the other two. So Javi's one of those quiet leaders that he just leads by example. And, I mean, not that Rizzo and Bryant don't. It's just a different kind of, like, there's just things that Javi does that nobody else can do, and that's why I feel like that's what Captain America is. There's things that he does that other people can't do.
Okay, there you go. Okay, I can get with that.
Yeah.
I can get with that. Cool. All right, let's do this last question. And this is something I've never asked anybody this. I have a personal opinion about this, but I want to know what you think. Should they have torn down the old Yankee Stadium? Because I believe there is a parking lot where that stadium used to stand.
Because I'm an old timer, and no, I don't. I wish they. I can't say that they should or shouldn't have, because I don't know if there were problems with it that needed to be upgraded and stuff. I wish they wouldn't have, because there was just so much history in that building, and not just back in the days of Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, all those guys, but even in the 90s and early 2000s, there's so much history there that it's like, how do you tear that down?
Yeah, I think they should have turned it into a museum.
Well, either a museum or just make the renovations that you need to kind of keep up with the. I mean, look at Wrigley and Fenway. They haven't torn those down, and those parks are almost 100 years old. So they could have, with George Steinbrenner's money that he spent on the new Yankee Stadium, all he had to do was put that money into renovations, and boom, you still have the monuments. You still have all of it, the mystique and everything else from the real Yankee Stadium. George, I wish you would have put your money in a better place.
Go ahead.
I wish you would have. You spent billions of
Mr.
dollars.
Billionaire, spend your money in a different way.
Yeah, just upgrade the stadium. That's all you had to do. Ugh.
But no, see, I always think that they should have turned it into a museum, because the money that they got from admission into that museum could have paid for the new stadium, like, easily. Tear out the grass, so you don't have to deal with grounds crew, and you could even pave the field, and then paint foul lines, batter's box, bases, everything, and then put like a plaque in the ground, say, this World Series was won with a catch here. Take the seats out and just have walkways, but then put a seat where there was a like a historical home run hit. Like, this home run won this game, this day, whatever. Well,
the thing that bothers me the most. Okay, we've seen, they tore down the Vet in Philadelphia. They tore down Three Rivers. Was that in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh? One of the two.
Pittsburgh.
And then they tore down the old Cincinnati Stadium as well, and Busch Stadium. They built a new Busch Stadium in St. Louis. The thing is, in those cities, those are brand new designs for ballparks. In New York, it's the exact same design they had before.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're going to build a new ballpark, at least build a new ballpark.
Update it.
Yeah. But the fact that you built nearly the exact same design as your new ballpark, why not just keep the old one? I like the museum idea.
Yeah.
Keep the old one, update it, upgrade it, whatever, and build a museum, in another parking lot or something. I think that's what bothers me the most is, you wanted a new stadium, but you basically built the old stadium, trying to keep the mystique and the whatever it is for the Yankee history. But, George, you just...
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I was so frustrated with the fact that they were tearing down Yankee Stadium, and I'm not even a Yankees fan. I was always just like, just turn it into a museum, just keep it. I never got to see it. There's tons of people who I'm sure wanted to see it but never got to. So it's it was a bummer to me when they tore it down. I thought they should have turned it into a museum. You could put busts all over the field, or not even busts, but like statues or something all over the field that commemorate iconic moments, things like that. Have a plaque somewhere. It says, this is where Lou Gehrig gave his farewell speech
Yep.
before retirement, things like that,
Yep.
and kept Monument Park out there. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But what do I know? But let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about ESPN's latest 30 for 30 that was released just last week, Long Gone Summer.
No matter which ballpark you're at, you want to rep your team. Now you can with 9+ Us. Welcome to the Big City Series. With every design available in your team's colors, you can fit in with the home crowd or stand out on the road. Either way, we have the colors you crave. Shop the Big City Series and find designs that rep your favorite baseball podcast, cheer from the cheap seats, and much more. Shop the Big City Series only at 9plusus.com.
Welcome back, baseball family. Let's wrap things up this week. Let's talk about this new 30 for 30 released by ESPN called Long Gone Summer. And I think it's an interesting topic. It was the 1998 home run race. Honestly, I don't know about you, Kyle, but as I watched this, I remembered more than I thought about that summer. I was 12 years old, born in 86, 12 years old, 1998. So I was obviously at an age where I'd remember things like that, but mostly what I remember was watching Sports Center after all those games were completed because that was one of the busiest summers for me for baseball. I was playing on 3 teams at the time, and so I pretty much played baseball till like the end of August, which was fantastic. I'll be honest with you, tons of fun. But I didn't watch much baseball that summer either, though, because of that. So most of what I saw was on Sports Center, and then I remember, seeing those highlights and things like that happen. I guess that's really the big place I want to start for you, Kyle, is how much of that summer do you actually remember?
I'm probably the same as you. Let's see. I was 16 at the time. I had just turned 16 in June that year.
Mm-hmm.
And between Legion ball, automotive ball, travel ball, I don't think I was able to sit down and watch games at all.
Yeah.
I think that where did I go? I went to Tucson that summer for a USA baseball tournament with a traveling team for 2 weeks.
Nice.
And like I said, I was playing Legion ball and automotive, so I was basically playing every night of the week that summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I like you said, I caught a lot of it on Sports Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember if we even had ESPN in 98.
I know we did because my routine during the summer was come home from a game, ice my arm sometimes, mostly my knees, while I watch Sports Center, and then wake up the next morning and watch Sports Center for another 2 or 3 hours because I didn't get enough the night before. So I know for sure we had it that summer.
Well, I'm trying to think. I mean, we probably did. That was, 22 years ago now.
Jeez.
And I know that we had WGN. I don't know how we got it, but we had. My dad made sure we had WGN.
I think everybody had WGN back then.
So that we could watch the Cubs.
Yeah, one of those national packages then.
So I mean, I think it was more of checking the newspaper every day too, just to see what happened, because, I mean, we're Cubs fans, so we wanted to see what was going on. Plus, the Cubs were in a playoff race, so
right, yeah,
it made a bigger impact on us.
Yeah, and that's really one of the reasons I thought of you for this, because I feel like you had more invested in the whole home run race than I did, being a Cubs fan. Because for me, it was like, I mean, as a Mariners fan, and Ken Griffey Jr. was my idol, so obviously I wanted to watch him break the record. I was pushing for Griffey all summer long, and then when he kind of tailed off there towards the end of the season, and we'll get in that. At least I'll get into that a little bit later. But I was really like, I don't want McGuire to hit 62. I don't want Sosa to hit 62. And so every home run, you know, like I was still following it because I wanted to see what happened. But with every home run, I got more and more upset that those guys were going to break that record.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Brad, I'm a left-handed hitter, thrower, and I played outfield, and I kind of got into that whole Ken Griffey Jr. stand and watch my home runs go kind of thing.
You know, I tried so hard to teach myself how to switch hit, just so that I could do that, just so that I could get that swing down and watch my home runs go over, because I didn't want to do the Sammy Sosa hop, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do the Ricky Henderson hop. I wanted to be able to do something cool when I hit one out. So there was one time actually I think it was that summer, I was playing some baseball with the neighborhood kids, and I convinced them to flip the field. Third base was first base. First base was third base, just because I was like, I'm going to take these kids' yard. I knew I was. And I hit like 5 or 6 home runs that day, and every single time I just strutted down to what was supposed to be third base, watching the ball go over the fence. It's like, this is so much fun. I love it.
Nice.
But
nice.
Yeah, I get it.
I think my dad hated it. Like, he had coached me through Pony League, where that's when it really started, because we had it's kind of a short porch in right field on our Pony League field.
Yeah.
And that's when it started. But I remember my junior year, we're in a playoff game against one of our region rivals. It was an elimination game, too. And it was the first inning. And I took a dude deep, and I stood there and watched it. That's the only time that my dad was actually happy that I did it. Any other time he was mad. Like, he would yell at me to run and get going.
Yeah.
But no, it's fun hitting from the left side and being able to do that. So.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, that was something I was always jealous of. I played with a couple left-handers growing up. I was like, man, I wish I could. Like, I can't even hardly hold a bat left-handed, much less switch hit. You know, like, I'm definitely not going to hit anything out. But yeah, no, that's awesome. But as far as a Cubs fan, though, following that season, though, like, were you more invested in the playoff race or in Sammy Sosa breaking the record? I mean, were you even a Sammy Sosa fan? Or were you more of a Mark Grace guy?
I was a Mark Grace guy, of course.
Well, there you go.
That's a no-brainer. I mean, because that was the same year that Kerry Wood had his 20 strikeout game, too.
Yeah, yep, it was.
I mean, there was a lot of storylines around that team.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially considering that the year before, everybody, you know, they embarrassed themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they weren't very
terrible.
good.
They were terrible the year before.
So there's that. But, I mean, you can't really discern between a home run race and a playoff race because they're kind of tied together. I mean, if Sammy doesn't hit, what was it, 68?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? 68, because he
finished
66.
No, 66, you're right. Yeah, 66 homers.
But if he doesn't hit those 66 homers, are the Cubs in the playoff race?
Right.
I doubt it, you know, especially with how many he hit it was 20 in June.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was just all tied together. And, I mean, you know, they're the lovable losers for a reason. So to see them make the playoffs, I mean, that, like Sammy said, I think he said in the towards the end when they were showing him celebrating making the playoffs, you know, that Mark McGwire's the king, but he's going to playoffs, and that's what it's all about. And I mean, it's fun to see. No offense to Mark McGwire, like hitting 70 home runs is great, but if your team doesn't make it to the playoffs, which one meant more? I guess you could say.
I would have traded. My goodness, the year the Mariners won 116 games in 2001, I would have traded 20 wins for a World Series.
Yeah.
You know, like I would have said win 96 and win the World Series rather than setting that record that is now empty, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you that Mark McGwire's 70 home runs would have meant so much more, so much more if they had actually made the playoffs. Instead, I can't remember. Let me check it. I've got it right here. I mean, did they finish in last place in the NL Central that year?
It's hard
Oh,
to
they
say
finished in
'cause
third.
you
They
got
finished in third.
You got the Pirates and the Reds and the Brewers in the Central, so it's hard to say which team finished last.
Yeah, but they finished with an 83 and 79 record. You know, Mark McGwire had a WAR of 7.5 that year, so you know those home runs made a big difference for sure. So
It's don't get me wrong, like to break that record is amazing because that's one of those records that you thought would never be broken.
mm-hmm.
And now, in my opinion, the record that'll never, ever, ever even come close to being broken is Cal Ripken's Ironman.
no
record
chance.
of
2000.
What is it? 2,131 straight games that he played in.
Yeah, and that's
So-
simply because people understand now, like it's not good for your body to play 162 games, no matter if you feel like you can or not.
Well, I have other thoughts on that for another day, but yeah, it just I think it meant more. It's a great accomplishment, great record, like we said, and I'm a big Mark McGwire fan. Like I'm happy that he broke it because, nobody thought they ever would, but for Sammy to, he broke the record too technically, and his team went to the playoffs. So either his home runs meant more to the Cubs than Mark McGwire's, or they had more of an impact on the Cubs' season than Mark McGwire's did. People might scorn me for saying that, but it's the truth when the Cubs went to the playoffs.
Right.
Because I'm 100% sure that without his 66 home runs, the Cubs don't go to the playoffs that year.
I agree with you. Yeah, because I'm sure there were times when those home runs came late in the game when they needed them, or were the jolt at some point during a game to turn things around. Because I always call home runs rally killers because it kills the moment, but it does a lot to carry momentum later in the game. Right?
True.
Like if you're completing a home run, if you're closing out a rally with a home run, there's no better way to do it because later we've got lightning, boys. Like, come on, that's the way I always felt with home runs. Is that we've got to start this rally over, but we've got momentum going to the next inning, and they do not. So
well, the best part about that season, from watching that 30 for 30, wasn't that they hit so many home runs. It was that people came to watch two guys that weren't even on their favorite team. Like people probably never watched baseball before that season when they got to see these two guys put on a show. They even mentioned it that these guys would go to other ballparks, and those ballparks which are never filled would be full, so they could just see Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa. Yeah. So
and it's like they say too, like unfortunately that's what it took, but that saved baseball after that strike, after the 94 strike, and there were a lot of people who left. That's what brought it back because people want to see the home runs. Like now, it is we're kind of dull to it. But at the time it was like, oh my gosh, you've got something to cheer for. They had a scene in the doc where they were talking to kids in school, like, are you going to watch tonight? Because Mark McGwire could break the record tonight. That this could happen. This is a big deal. It's a record that's been around for, at the time, 37 years. So are you going to watch?
Is it bad that as I was watching that, that a couple times some of the balls that they hit, I'm thinking, people don't want to focus on this, but I'm thinking, would he have hit that if he wasn't on roids? Or was Sammy using maybe a corked bat because we saw, what was it, a couple of years later he got suspended for using cork in his bat?
Yeah.
Because some of those shots were mammoth.
Oh, they were huge. Like Mark McGwire lived in the upper deck.
Yeah.
Absolutely lived in the upper deck. And, I've actually had that same thought. Brig and I have touched on that a little bit. So it's 2003 that Sammy Sosa was suspended for using a corked bat.
Right.
And that was actually one thing that I was a little bit disappointed with this whole thing, was that it didn't dive deeper into Mark McGwire's steroid use, right? Like the fact that technically it wasn't illegal because they weren't testing for it. If he came out and somehow they found out that he was, he'd be scorned, but he wouldn't be in trouble. They I think they spent a total of about 10 minutes of the hour and 44 minutes
Right.
on steroids. So I would have liked to have had them talk a little bit more about that. That would have been nice. But I've always wondered, though, was Sammy Sosa using a corked bat that year? Because, like I said, we came out in 2003. He said it was a batting practice bat, which I don't buy because everybody, your bats. That was a home run race that was fueled by steroids and potentially a corked bat.
Well,
but it is unfortunate, but
you listen to the crack of the bat on some of those home runs that they showed on the documentary, and you're like, that doesn't sound normal.
But it's like there was a couple for Sosa's. Was like that sounds like a little bit of a hollow bat. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm a Sammy Sosa fan. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, and that's hard for me to say because, like, what the sound of a real bat sounds like.
It's very
even when
distinct.
they get on the barrel, and you're like, that doesn't sound like that at all.
And I had that thought, but the other thought that I had was that those guys were so strong from steroids that they could miss a ball and it will go out.
Yep.
That they could hit the ball off the end of the bat, it could crack the bat, and that could go out. But then again, that's a distinct sound too.
Yep.
If you know what that sounds like, you can hear it at a game. You can even hear it sometimes on TV. But yeah, his bat definitely said. They say that the ball sounds different coming off a guy's bat. It sounded a little different coming off Sammy Sosa's bat, and I don't think it was because of his level of pop. I think you've got something there that we don't know because he never shattered a bat. But
and with McGuire, I mean, the dude was just so strong that he could swing all arms and still get one out.
Yes,
and hit it a mile too. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't ever realize how tall he was because he was so bulky. He always looked a little bit shorter to me. But earlier this year, I watched the 1988 World Series, and I was like, oh, geez, he's 6'4". He's huge. So the height combined with the stacks upon stacks of muscle, if he gets those long arm extended, he's got the leverage. He's gonna hit the ball out. Plus, he was so strong that there was no chance. Like my wife noticed, she's like, gosh, his shoulders are like slumpy. I was like, it's because his traps are huge. Yeah, the guy was on steroids and his traps are enormous. He looks like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises.
Well, what did they say in the documentary? They said he had like back muscles that most people don't even know they have.
Yeah, because he was just that big, and to think that for the world to think that he wasn't on steroids there, I think it was just naivety and ignorance. But, I mean, you go back and watch those games. You watch that one. I watched that 1988 World Series game. I watched the Kirk Gibson game, and you see Jose Canseco there. It's like, oh, yeah, that dude was juicing. Because I made the comparison then. I was like, they looked like Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. And Mark McGuire looked a lot like Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove, too.
Yeah.
Just shoulders were, like, as wide as a doorway, and then he was like a 32 waist, Just like total – he's huge. Just enormous.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then you see Barry Bonds a couple years later, and you're like,
It was funny. There was something they showed in the doc. It was one of the they showed, I believe it was a Mark McGuire home run against the Giants, and they showed Barry Bonds in the outfield looking super salty, and I was like, and that's where he got the idea. That was the beginning of Barry Bonds right there.
Well, it's because just it was. I'm sorry that. I know people don't like to talk about this subject, but when you look at Barry Bonds when he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and even at the beginning of his stint in San Francisco, and then you see him at the end, there's no way that you can say that these guys weren't on roids because you don't get that big, that quick, and that strong that quick. I'm sorry.
I feel like you just don't get that big period without it.
Yeah.
And they were larger than life. They're huge.
But it's like you said, they weren't testing. So, I mean, what are you going to do as a baseball player? You got to keep up and keep playing at a high level. Yeah. And that's what they did to keep playing at a high level.
Exactly. And it let him play for a high level the whole entire season because that's what I mentioned earlier about how Griffey kind of tailed off at the end. And I think it's because he wasn't using steroids that he's so busy hitting home runs and trying to carry this not good Mariners team that he got worn out. That he
hit those dog days of summer and he was done.
Yeah, and that's one of the things they talked about too. They hit the dog days of summer, and guys start to wear out. Mark McGwire struggled during that time typically, but that year he didn't really. He kept going, kept hitting them out.
Well,
Sosa kept hitting them out.
Think about that. The talk. What was it? Tony La Russa said about McGwire with regard to his like laser-like focus and stuff like. Steroids help with that because you are on top of your game and you're gonna stay focused on what you need to get done. And it's a tough subject to talk about because you love to see guys hitting home runs, you love to see guys making runs at records and so forth, but you don't like to see the asterisks next to those records, but I mean, in this situation, you kind of have to. Yep.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, like you said. But, I mean, you go back to Roger Maris. At the time, everybody was using greenies. And, did he have a distinct advantage against anybody else using them? Probably not, because everybody was,
Yep.
And because it was just the common thing. They just kept them in like a cereal bowl in the middle of the clubhouse. You'd need a couple, you take them, and then you go play. So, people contribute that to his setting, like breaking Babe Ruth's record, and plus having a couple extra games, whatever. But it, like you said, steroids does make a huge difference.
Yep.
Even over greenies, anything else. And to say there were other guys who were taking it who didn't set the record makes them that much better. Well, I say this all the time. Steroids, they say, make good players great players elite. And that's what it did with Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds.
It's true.
So, well, anyway, if you want to watch the documentary, it's fun. It's more of a trip down memory lane than anything. Like we said, you get about 10 minutes of steroids talk, and you get Bob Costas talking about it, which is nice. I'll listen to Bob Costas talk about baseball. I enjoy that. But it's fun. I was surprised at how much I remembered. So that was pretty cool to watch. But you can check it out on ESPN, called Long Gone Summer. But let's go ahead and wrap things up. Don't forget to stop by the shop, 9plusus.com. Spell it out, NINEPLUSUS.com. You can get there. I'm wearing my perfect hat tonight, and I've got my Pirate baseball shirt. This, I don't know what it is. This is like the most comfortable shirt that I own. It's fantastic.
Well, I got my Baseball Together shirt on.
Nice.
And I really like it. I can't do snapback hats. That's why I don't have a Perfect Game or other, 9plusus hat, because snapback hats don't cut it for me. So,
and I used to be
Brig,
the same way. I used to be the same way until I got these, and Brig.
He has to get maybe get a flex hat. Get the mesh flex hat.
Oh,
those are great. I love those. I'll wear those all day long.
Like a golf hat. You thinking like a golf hat?
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
we do have flex fits. Go ahead.
It can't be a snapback. It has to be, the fitted flex hat, whatever. So, but I just can't. I knew that would come up sometime tonight in this podcast, to be honest with you. I was thinking about my response.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that I just can't do snapbacks. I don't have one in my repertoire of hats. So I'm wearing my Cubs hat tonight.
Nice.
Because obviously I'm a Cubs fan. So
Right on. But yeah, if you can't do the snapback, you can get a flex fit. We do have flex fits hats. So there's that for you.
Check it out.
Don't forget to stop by baseballtogether.com. You can watch the podcast, listen to the podcast. I haven't posted the podcast there actually for a little while. We do have the podcast player that updates every week, but I need to get better about posting the YouTube video on there. So we'll get that on there, get caught up. You guys can watch that there. So baseballtogether.com and Baseball Family. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Tell your friends about us. We can grow the community, and we will catch you next week.